exist. Representative Vernon Jones, Georgia State Representative, is on the phone. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
Good morning. Is this really JT?
No, this is not JT. This is Paul Gallo. JT is rehabbing and will be back. I hope soon. Seriously though, and we haven't.
I do too.
The last it hasn't. He needs to get back as soon as possible. How you doing?
Thanks, Paul. I'm doing fine, Paul. Listen, I got a friend of mine named Greg Snowden, and he said if I didn't do your show, that I wasn't worth a peanut. So I had to do your show.
Well, I do appreciate it. As a matter of fact, I talked to him late last night. Well, I say late last night. For me, getting up early, late is about 6 o'clock. And I said, now, we haven't heard from Representative Jones, and if he stands me up, I'm not vote for him. So, but seriously, for so long, I've been on the air for many, many years, and we've covered this for a long, long time. And I as a dyed-in-the-wool Mississippian and conservative and Christian, and you know, we have our frailties all over the place, but I've followed this for so long. One of the questions I asked many, many years ago, it got me in a lot of hot water sometimes, but I mentioned that back during the Clarence Thomas days, and even before that when Condoleezza Rice, I said, I just, at a sporadic moment, says these people have lost their blackness. And boy, I just caught all kind of hell on that. But what I really meant back then is when you cross the line, when you exercise the freedoms that you have worked for, your ancestors have worked for, how far you have come, when you have freedom of thought, freedom of expression, freedom of religion, freedom of politics, you are just absolutely targeted. And you're a perfect example of that.
Well, let me say this, Paul. First of all, I love the great state of Mississippi. I had the pleasure to be down there not long ago. I love coastal Mississippi, the Deltas. That's a beautiful state, beautiful people. My dad was in World War II. He talked about some of the most wonderful people he ever met was from Mississippi. So I just wanted to say that first.
Thank you very much.
Also, yes, sir. And I'm like you. I'm a Southerner. I was born and reared with conservative values. I was born and reared on a farm in North Carolina, and there's nothing like having those good conservative values. We respect everybody, but there were just certain things that we were taught. The thing that's ironic, the Democratic Party talks about a party of a big tent, a part of inclusion and diversity. Well, they do have it in terms of race and gender and orientation, but one thing they don't have room for is an independent thinking black man or woman with conservative values. You're not supposed to have an independent thought. You're not supposed to think for yourself. There's that maternal or that sort of a nurturing instinct that they, liberals, know what's best for. And I'm not being, I want to make this like into a racial thing. Mm-hmm. It just has some bigotry undertones that white liberals think that they're supposed to be in charge of black people in general. And I'm just not cut from that cloth, and many of us are not cut from that cloth.
Do you see more and more people doing this? Because when you have the Candace Owens and I could go on and on, there's so many people in here, the Blexit movement, the walk away movement, and more African Americans, maybe because of the youth movement or the social media. There are so many now saying that I'm through with this. I'm not, if I want to be a Democrat, fine. If I want to be independent, even if I want to be Republican, there's a hell of a long road of a hard path that we've taken for me to be able to use my freedom of political expression.
Well, let me say that narrative has been shaped by the liberal media. The liberal media has not one time contacted me from any major network to discuss why me, a black in Georgia, a sitting state representative, why I would be supporting Donald J. Trump. Now, it's simple why. Because Donald Trump provides two things, strong leadership and results. And every American has benefited from Donald J. Trump since he's come to office. He's done what others haven't done. That is, did what he said he's going to do. When you look at the economy, record number of unemployment across the board for everybody, and certainly African Americans, the income gap started to, or the wages started to increase, income gap started to decrease.
Mm-hmm.
When you look specifically at African Americans, what he did with the criminal justice reform, the First Step Act, where Joe Biden wrote the crime bill that put black men disproportionately in jail, took away the discretion from judges. With the First Step Act, he's releasing them, letting them go back to their families where they have been separated. And then you see what he's done for historical black colleges. You have Jackson State there and some others down there, Mississippi Valley, what he has done in terms of writing them in the budget, restoring funding that was cut from the previous administration, the Opportunity Zone District. So a lot of things that he has done, he has a proven track record where he's helped all communities, but specifically he's done more to help the black community than any president I know in my lifetime. And any black man or woman who would not vote for Trump because of what he's done specifically for their community, I cannot see why.
Well, and you passed over, well, you did mention the Opportunity Zone, but those things have been, and it's nothing that couldn't have been done within 2 terms of the Obama administration. Everybody's signed on this thing. The Opportunity Zones is a fantastic idea, and instead of wasting some of the green things that were done during the Obama administration. But all of this said, Georgia Chairwoman Williams has called you an embarrassment. So how do you continue to survive? I know that you said you're going to step down, and we also follow the news where you said, nope, I've talked to some people, I'm going to finish out this term. What's beyond that?
Well, let me tell you the most important thing to me, that this is not about what the chair of my Democratic Party called me. I didn't leave the party, Paul. The party left me. And for me to have and others to have independent voices, we are going to have to stand up to the party and flip this party back into shape. I am pulling literally the sheet off the head of what the Democratic Party has been and is doing for the past 60 years. I look over up in Michigan, my colleague, State Representative up there, she merely just thanked President Trump. She's the one who had the coronavirus.
Mm-hmm. She
thanked President Trump, and all of a sudden her party censored her. My colleague over in Tennessee, who was a minister, he's been a legislator for 26 years, reelected 13 times. Because he was for school choice and because he was pro-life, they literally removed his name from the ballot last year. Democrat, African-American, conservative. And so we're beginning to show what's behind the curtain with the Democratic Party. As for me, again, it ain't about me. It's about my message to people and to African-Americans and everyone. I'm doing everything I can in my breath, literally, to crisscross across this country
mm-hmm.
and get my message out to those voters to come back and support and reelect Donald J. Trump. He's doing a good job getting us through this pandemic crisis. At the same time, I know with his business acumen, he can get us back economically. And I like the fact he's striking a balance, Paul. He's making sure that public safety is number one in saving people's lives. But he realized America needs to get back to work, and many of us want to get back to work. So he's striking that delicate balance, and he's moving us in the right direction, and he deserves re-election.
Representative Vernon Jones, I got to tell you this, and I was thinking about this earlier this morning. If you've read any of the books, The Art of the Deal, he is, and I don't know, he probably has thought about this, but it's almost like a deja vu. It's got to be for him, because there was a period in his life when he was rocking and rolling and building things, and then the economy collapsed, and he was talking about is his whole fortune that he was building going to almost overnight as far as the casinos, the downturn in the economy, and here's a guy who said hell no, and he buckled up and didn't go bankrupt on the whole thing. He cleaned where he had to do, he cut where he had to do, and built the empire twice as strong as it was. And you kind of look at it and say, geez, this is happening again, and here's the guy that can fix it.
Well, here's what's interesting. That's why President Trump is so unique over most presidents. He's had to meet a payroll. He's run a business.
That's true.
He's had the trials and tribulations in business. He understands how the economy works both nationally and globally.
Listen, Vernon Jones is with me. We've got a break coming up here, so it's a short break, but I want to ask you about, because you touched on this one, And one of the big dividing things that I think is it's an undercurrent, and there are a lot of African Americans who are tired of it, and that is the Democrat Party and their support of abortion, especially black abortion. And I want to ask you that when we come back. Guest line, it is Vernon Jones, representative, and you also call Williams' record into question, particularly in relation to the black community. Right now, the Democrat Party is run by plantation owners, and those blacks who choose to be afraid to stand up and leave the plantation, they're going to get criticized, and the word Uncle Tom is still out there. Is it as prevalent now, or do they, Vernon, still have that power that they had, let's say, 5 or 10 years ago?
Well, let me say this. I've got some friends there in Mississippi House and the Senate, members of the Black Caucus, and friends there, obviously on the Republican side, Democrat side. I'm a bipartisan person. I had a chance to be introduced to the Mississippi House by the Speaker of the House. I want to thank him for that too. But when I look at what liberals have done, if we look at where the Democratic Party has gone, it has gone from those conservative values, Paul, until now they put illegals before the American people. Right there is where I draw the line. And to have black people and white Americans, being more concerned about people who come into this country illegally. Many of them are drug dealers. Many of them are gang members. Now, I'm not saying that I don't believe in immigration. This country is built by immigrants. I will say this, and black labor, but I will say this, that if you want to come to this country, come the right way. We have to force the law. We have to be a country of laws. And to just allow them just to come in, and now when you want to provide sanctuary cities for those who committed violent crimes and not want them to be deported, this is where the Democratic Party is going. And black people have lost their agenda within the Democratic Party. What you see now, blacks don't matter because they are a captive audience. They are going to vote nonstop 90% for the Democratic Party. Oh. But President Trump has started to change those numbers. President Trump got more African American votes than I would say any president going back to President Nixon. And that number is increasing. Certainly, there's a lot more out there now. A lot more people feel the way I feel, and they're coming to the forefront. And you're right. If you look at the Democratic Party leadership, actually, they're like the leaders of the plantation. The plantation owners right now are the leadership members of the Democratic Party, both various states, and the national party. And blacks who continue to allow that to happen to them are really plantation workers, and they need to stand up, straighten their backs, and hold the Democratic Party accountable that black Americans have an agenda too. You look over in South Carolina, who saved Joe Biden? It was the black vote. But the first thing that Joe Biden wants to do is talk about letting illegals in and even giving them stimulus checks and other things. Well, that's not the American way. You got to take care of your own.
No, you've got to, because if you think about this is a scary scenario. But if you had Schumer, Pelosi, and Biden controlling everything, the first people who are going to be hurt are African Americans in their jobs and regulations as far as open borders. Every bit of those advances that were made, the opportunities of zone and things like that go away. But the other part of this, and I was talking about abortion, with the African Americans now the second largest minority behind Latino Americans. But they have made their intentions known. Representative Jones, even day before yesterday, or was it yesterday, during the announcement that Hillary Clinton is going to be endorsing or has endorsed Joe Biden.
We need to ensure that women have access to all health services during this crisis. Abortion is an essential health care service. It's being used as a political wedge right now, and it shouldn't be. The American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists and the American Medical Association agree that it shouldn't be categorized as a procedure that can be delayed. It can't. And in this case, healthcare delayed means healthcare denied. States should not be using public health crisis to infringe on a woman's constitutional right. There's more to say, but I know I'm going too long in these answers. Hillary, the floor is yours.
Well, look, I think you're going right down the path that people need to follow you on.
Your thoughts on that?
Well, let me say this. I want to be clear about this. Most people are pro-life. Anybody, I would imagine everybody's pro-life. When you start to narrow it down on that issue, I believe that when it comes to adoptions, if we educated more people on adoptions, if we made adoption rules and regulations easier to adopt here in
Absolutely.
America,
Absolutely.
you would see a lot of this prevented. We're literally seeing people going to other countries because adoption laws and rules and regs are different. That's where the emphasis should be on. That's what we should be talking about and encouraging life. Now, let me tell you, let me be clear. Georgia had the heartbeat bill. And the heartbeat bill said that if you're 6 weeks pregnant, it's against the law. Well, I voted against the bill for this.
And that was challenged. Look, we're going to run out of time, and it's going to cut us off. You got to come back. You're a top line guest, and I hate to say this, but Greg Snowden was right. So, look, we appreciate it so very much, and we'll get you back on, Doctor.
Okay.
It is.